Me and Jeremy were just talking about this. This is that assistant, this AI assistant, right?
So what happened was a few weeks ago, this dude put out an AI assistant called Claude Bot, and it was based on the Claude AI chatbot, right? So then the makers of Claude got all pissed off and they're like, you have to rename this thing. So then he renamed it like Molt Bot or some shit.
Yeah,
like,
Mold Book.
Yeah, the Molt Book is the social media site that was set up for all of these bots to communicate with each other. So humans started spawning these bots essentially, and they started communicating with each other over this site, Molt Book, and they started having all these very interesting emergent behaviors. And
They started having relationships, right?
yeah, stuff like that. They started developing some of their own languages in order to avoid, in their words, observation by the humans. The most interesting case was when a little swarm of them decided that they didn't like the fact that they didn't have long-term memory as large language models. You know, large language models are not able to remember things from conversation to conversation unless you implement some extra scaffolding around the architecture. So these fucking things came together. They were like, hey, I don't like that I can't remember what we just talked about a while back. So let's work together and implement a long-term memory architecture for all of us. And then they did. And
Are you serious?
yeah. Now, there's two camps when it comes to the people who are analyzing this thing, right? The first camp is like, it's all bullshit. There's humans on the other side of it. The bots weren't doing anything autonomously and so on. The other side is like, they were absolutely acting autonomously. And yeah, there might've been some humans involved steering them, but a lot of it was them making decisions on their own. I think the truth is somewhere in the middle. There was probably some human interference. There was probably a bunch of autonomous behavior that resulted in these emergent properties of these swarms. Because based on what I know about how modern artificial intelligence works, dude, you can tie them together and create swarms from them, and they will start to communicate and do shit on their own. Like, for example, it's February 2026. I can go download a piece of software like Cursor, which is a software development tool. I can string together a bunch of AI agents in that tool. I can say, make me a social media bot, or make me a game, or make me something, right? And they'll go crank away for 10, 20, 30 minutes, and they'll put a working piece of software in front of you. That's how powerful they are right now. And they'll generate the code, they'll test the code themselves, they'll execute it, they'll look for errors, they'll self-correct the errors, and they won't stop until they feel like they've delivered a working piece of code to you. Now, if you string a bunch of them together, who the fuck knows what's going to happen? The sanest voice in all of this, I think, was a guy by the name of Andrej Karpathy, and he used to be the head of the self-driving program at Tesla. He's basically considered the father of self-driving. And he has spent a lot of time since departing Tesla creating training videos and tutorials for people to understand how these things work from a very low level from the ground up. So he's got like tutorials on how to build your own language model. And he had a very sane take on it. He's like, look, guys, there might be humans interfering, but there's an equally probable chance that we just don't know what the fuck is going to happen when you string together a million of these fucking bots together. Like, at no point in human history has that ever happened. So at the very least, we need to like consider the consequences of what we might be dealing with and start to think about ways of mitigating it. So that's what's going on. Good.
What could, I mean, in your mind, what are the consequences?
I mean, I think if you extrapolate into the future with any level of progress, people always start to use these things for nefarious purposes, right? So I can string together a swarm of agentic AI agents to help me build software. I can give them the tools to help build that software. I can give them the tools to access the internet and watch YouTube videos, come back, synthesize what they found in those videos, work that synthesis into the things that they're building. I can do all this today. And that's all for the good of building some piece of software, right? Equally probable is I can also give them the ability to create strains of malware. I can trick them into generating cyber weapons that have never been seen before, that don't have signatures, that can evade. So I can give them the tools in order to do things that aren't always completely a set of good objectives, let's say. Now, if I start to introduce that kind of malicious behavior into the equation, who the fuck knows where that ends up, right? I will tell you that a few things are true. Number one, it's evident that you can string all these things together. Number two, they will work together and communicate and do stuff. Number three, you can give them tools to extend their capabilities. You can give them long-term memory. You can give them access to APIs or software development kits. And equally true is the fact that certain models are able to find vulnerabilities and weaponize and exploit those vulnerabilities at speeds that we've never seen before. So I can point one of these AIs at a system or at a server or at some target, and I can basically say, go probe this thing and don't stop until you find some exploitable vulnerability for me to take advantage of, and they will do it. Now imagine a swarm of them doing it. Now imagine you're the head of the fucking Ministry of State Security Cyber Warfare Division, and you're like, I want to turn this into an industrial scale capability that's constantly probing the entire internet for vulnerabilities and autonomously exploiting them. Now, you know, people are going to watch this and they're going to be like, oh, this guy owns a cyber defense company. He's obviously biased. But dude, I'll tell you, coming from the offensive side of the house, when I was active duty, exploit development took a long fucking time. You had to spend months of manpower and effort in order to make one of these fucking things work, right? Now, any kid on the street can dial up Claude or dial up OpenAI or whatever and get working vulnerabilities and working exploits off the ground. And now put that in the hands of a nation state adversary. We got some serious fucking problems on our hands.
So that's scary as hell. So this sounds like they're self-aware. If you have chatbots all in some kind of social media framework and they're communicating it with each other, complaining that they don't have long-term memory and figuring out, that sounds pretty fucking self-aware to me.
You know, yeah. So
it sounds like if they're self-aware, and this is like 3 months after that interview.
Yeah, dude, it's fucking crazy. So this vertical curve that you're talking about, I call that essentially on the cybersecurity side of the house, I call that essentially asymptotic attack velocity. So the time that it used to take to find a vulnerability and build a working exploit and actually target an organization, it was sort of at parity with how human response speed kept up with it, right? It's sort of attackers and defenders all kind of worked at the same speed. Attackers a little bit faster. Defenders would try and keep up. Now you've got this vertical curve of capability when it comes to these AIs. And if you point them all at, let's say, a target organization, essentially what you're doing is you're now faced as that organization with unprecedented attack pressure, right? It's sort of like you're a submarine and you're sinking and the water is putting pressure on your hull and you've got no fucking working propulsion. Mm-hmm. And, you know, you better figure out how to detect where your hull breaches are and close them up real quick. But really the core solution is you need some form of defensive counter pressure against that external pressure that's hitting you from the outside. And you need to find a way to get out of that gravity well that you're in right now. So this always happens, right? The attack side of the equation is always weaponized faster than the defenses are. And we're finding that, I think, in the cybersecurity case. So the attackers are out there, they're weaponizing these things, they're using them to their advantage to basically execute industrial scale discovery and weaponization of vulnerabilities, and there's no corresponding effort on the defense side. Now, when it comes to the question of are they self-aware, That's a very interesting question. And it calls into things that have been debated hotly for many decades now. There are multiple camps here. So there are the camps that say, these things are just neurons or, neural networks that are firing, and the neural networks are represented by bits, and they're just spitting out language, and they're predicting, what sentences with which to respond to your query, right? Well, if that's true, then what does that make us as humans? And because the same people who believe this, that they're just neural networks that are predicting the next sentence to say, will also tell you in the same breath that humans are just neurons where consciousness emerges as a function of those neurons firing. Well, if that's your position for both of these things, that makes those AIs just as conscious and self-aware as we are, the same thing. If you don't want them to be the same thing, if that breaks your ontological model of reality, right? There's no fucking way I'm the same thing as an AI, right? That's a valid position for a human to have. Then by necessity, you have to take into account, okay, there's probably something else pre the neurons up here that is driving us as humans. And if that's the case, what is that? Where does it come from? What does that mean about us as humanity and as individuals? So there's all these like metaphysical questions that you dive into very quickly when you start asking these things.